Please be seated. I know you mothers with young babies thought we'd never get to this point, did you? This is a wonderful service, though. This is a service that clergy live for. Baptisms. But before we begin this service tonight, we had a lot of other services. And we talked about what happened when man went to the lowest part of their functioning. How low can we go, you might ask? Well, in the story that we read on Good Friday, that was just yesterday, we read that man could go pretty low. Thursday, I talked about a man that I met in prison. His name was Jim. I wanted to give Jim a gift, a really special gift. But all that Jim wanted was the food. He came for the food. He never really said that. Sometimes they do. They'll say, well, I just came for the food. I like that. I like an honest man. But Jim just came for the food, and it was pretty obvious shortly after we got there. He didn't come for the gift. Hallelujah, Christ is risen.
The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah.
He wouldn't have heard those words if we had said them. I wanted to give him a gift, but all he wanted was the food. When we had conversations at the table, he wouldn't enter in unless he could dominate. That's what people do when they're afraid. We're going to baptize 3 young people tonight, 2 babies and one who's gone beyond the baby stage, a young adult. It's a great day. And we're grateful for you to stay up this late so that we could baptize these children. Children of God. It's a traditional that this night, this holy night, was a night in which baptisms occurred. Aspirants to become Christians used to have to work really hard to get there. They'd have to study. And they would study every time the Christians would meet. When the holy table was to be set, those that were to be baptized would go off to another location and study hard. These stories, these same stories we read tonight, the story of salvation history, a lot of stories preceded this story of resurrection. And aren't we glad? Hallelujah, Christ is risen.
The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah.
The word baptism, we didn't go over this today, but it comes from the Greek and it means immersion. Those of you who have been to a baptism where I've been, the celebrant or the one that was baptizing, you've heard me tell this, but the word means immersion. Some churches would have us believe that if you don't baptize these that are to be baptized fully immersed, you haven't really done the job. But immersion means more than that, don't you know? Immersion means we become part of that in which we are being immersed in. If you get immersed in your work, it means you're really a part of it, doesn't it? So just baptizing this baby with a lot of water or a little water doesn't get it. This is just a promise of things to come. It's a story that we read that leads us to want to do this story that we read tonight, this holy night, a story about Jesus. And we ask questions. We begin to think, who is this Jesus? Do I want to be a part of this? Who is this Jesus? And does it mean anything to me? Does Jesus' story somehow connect with my story? And how does it connect with all these other stories that preceded it? Jesus, the foot of pride. Father Rick and I have grown to love Bob Dylan's song, The Foot of Pride. It's become part of our shared theology. And we don't share every little story, but this one we do. The story goes that when the foot of pride comes down, there ain't no going back. The foot of pride is Jesus. And once you immerse yourself into that reality, there's no going back. No going back. We don't know where these children's story will lead. But we know one thing, this is a broken world, right? And they're broken families, lots of brokenness everywhere, right? And in this story tonight, Jesus is broken. But the good news is Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. Hallelujah, Christ is risen.
Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah.
I pay them to do that. I wanted to give Jim a gift, but all he wanted was the food. His pride was so great that he could not overcome it to immerse himself into the reality of the gift that was being offered. He couldn't do it. But when the foot of pride comes down and we feel it, there ain't no going back. Hallelujah. So we hope that tonight will be more than just an opportunity, a photo op, so you can have pictures to put in your scrapbook and one day show everybody. This was the day that our baby was baptized. That's a good thing. That's not necessarily bad. We take pictures in prison and we give them lots of food, good food. And if that's all they get out of it, we're grateful for that. We want them to have a good meal. But we want to give them much more than that. We want to give them what Jesus gives us tonight. Life. A new family. All the brokenness in the world, God put back together again. And achieved victory over death in a way that no one else could do it. There ain't no going back. And that's good news.